HBCU Digest Radio, Digest After Dark. Welcome back. Unfiltered and uncensored talk from young alumni of historically black colleges and universities. Thank you again for joining us on HBCUdigest.com and Sirius 142 XM Radio, the Howard University digital imprint. Tonight we got line brother KD, Ors the Morganite, and Tiff about to get thrown off the show.
Already?
We have a
I am not getting thrown off the show.
We have a lot of stuff to get to tonight. 4 big topics that really have caught attention in the last few weeks. So we will start today with one that I don't think is getting enough national attention, and that is the situation with the Howard University Hospital. So going back a few weeks, actually a few months, the D.C. City Council moved forward some legislation that would create a new hospital in the city. It's a very long story, but to make it short, D.C. wants to create a new hospital. Creating a new hospital would limit opportunities for the medical students at Howard University to have rotations and practical experience, and limit the service that would be coming out of Howard University Hospital, which over some years has had some challenges financially and service wise, because it's a hospital for the poor. People don't pay to get treated there. But today the city council looks like they approved an amendment that would allow for the creation of a new hospital, but would include Howard University and its medical school in the opportunities for the training of new doctors and practical experiences and collaborative development with the hospital and the medical school. This is a big deal because Howard University in Washington and for the nation is one of the top producers of black medical doctors anywhere in the country. So what you allow for Howard to do in its own city is actually of benefit for the city and beyond. So, Ors, we will start with you. You and I are DMV natives, and you more so than me, with life growing up in the city. What is your impression about how this road has kind of wound down to this, with an amendment getting passed? And I think it's going to go before the full council, I think later this month, but so far so good, after a couple twists and turns with it not being clear on what's going to happen with the hospital and the medical school.
I mean, I'm happy to hear about it. Obviously, I have a really close affinity to the hospital. My mother and her 6 siblings were born there because they couldn't be born anywhere else at the time in D.C. Mm-hmm. My uncle did his residency there as well. So I have a big connection to just the hospital and the school, the greater school at large. So I think it's a good thing. I think it's unfortunate that one of the councilmen who represents the kind of southeastern side of the city, or the eastern side of the city, Vincent Gray, is pushing kind of against these Howard amendments. Mm-hmm. And obviously he's a former mayor whose mayoral tenure ended in some scandal. Mm-hmm. And the people who are pushing for it are obviously McDuffie and Trayon White. And Trayon represents east side of the city, as does McDuffie, even though McDuffie has some parts of Bloomingdale, which kind of mirror where Howard is. Mm-hmm. So I think overall in general it's a good push to kind of have this amendment put on, and there's other parts of the deal which will speed up the completion of it from 2023 to 2022. And there's some other things in there with the way that they'll work out the deal with the unions, and there's a bunch of other stuff within the bill, but the part about Howard I think is really important. And obviously the majority of people who live in Ward 8 and Ward 7 are black, lower income people. The income disparity between Ward 8 and the rest of the city, I think, is like almost $100,000. So when you look at it from that perspective, obviously you want to have people who look like you to help treat you. And without having Howard in this bill, and it's a part of the training part of the hospital, it won't be anything positive coming out of it. And then finally, I think that the city made a mistake in general, kind of led by Vincent Gray, by awarding the contract initially to GW.
Right.
They probably should have found ways to create a space where Howard had a piece of it, GW had a piece, or whoever else wanted a piece of it could have a piece of it. But I think that making the initial, he made the initial statement of like, we put an RFP out, we got the RFPs, we picked the best deal. Obviously, a school like GW is going to be able to produce a better deal initially. They have more cash on hand. Their hospital is not run by the university. They're not a training hospital in that same way Howard is. Obviously, their deal will be better in terms of money. But I think the council made a big mistake, led by Vincent Gray, by going that route initially. And now they have to back it up, which is wasting time and wasting money. when they could have had Howard in the deal from the jump.
It's very surprising, and I'm always shocked, and I don't know why at this point, when you see cities with predominant black citizenry and virtually all black city council doing things or allowing things that go against the interests of the black people in the city. Katie, I would throw this to you because, and actually all three of us could talk about this, having gone to school, or Katie, in your case, having grown up in Baltimore City. It's not always a good look when you have rapid expansion of a hospital in the city. Like, everybody thinks like, oh, more jobs and there's more opportunities and there's going to be greater healthcare. You know, we got Hopkins up here, and the big debate up here now is like, okay, should Hopkins have their own police department? You know, should Hopkins be able to buy up all this property up and down, you know, Monument Street and Mulberry and all those other places? What is your view of what those ramifications can mean for black people? Because obviously Howard will have an opportunity to participate in this, but Howard is not the lead institution on it. It's going to be GW. So you give the perspective of the noise that we hear in Baltimore about Hopkins basically taking over a part of Baltimore City and what that means for its black residents.
Yeah, see, that's an interesting one, right? Because like you said, it's a job creator in one sense. And so you don't want to stifle any type of progress that could come, because Johns Hopkins is the largest employer, I believe, in Baltimore City, maybe the second largest in the state of Maryland, next to the University of Maryland. And understanding that those two hospitals are always competing with each other, like they buying researchers from each other, because the research stays with the doctor. And so, like, knowing that you have that type of competition is actually good for the city. It's just that sometimes the university itself takes leaps that it doesn't necessarily need to take in order to protect its brand, if you will. And so that what that led to in Baltimore City is Johns Hopkins in particular trying to buy everything between Charles Street and its campus off Eastern Avenue. And that includes a lot of poor people. And so that's the area that they're now trying to police. And I think we had a situation up in Wisconsin, not Wisconsin, I think it was on the East Coast, Massachusetts, right? Where like a Yale University cop just shot, a resident or somebody from the neighborhood. And so, like, I don't know if Baltimore City can deal with that again, with a cop killing, especially a Johns Hopkins cop killing a citizen, especially a poor black citizen. Like, we already seen the results of that.
And it all comes,
want to go back to that.
It all comes back to the conversation about gentrification, right? And so Tiff,
right,
having been recently out of Howard, and gentrification is a big topic among students and young alumni who stay proximate to D.C. Obviously, with not allowing Howard the chance to expand its brand in this part of the city, and particularly for those black residents from low income homes and all that, do you think that this is something that will, one, contribute to the gentrification of the area, and two, do you think that the students will be savvy enough to recognize that the Howard Hospital and Howard University are kind of at the mercy of the city at this point? And do they think that Howard is a bystander or an enabler of, I guess, the gentrification that's coming because of stuff like this?
Can they afford not to be?
Well,
aren't they picking up the bag for all the poor people in the neighborhood as it stands?
That's the question.
Definitely. If you get shot, to take you to Howard.
I would like to see some balance here, like for all these Howard students and young alum who are still in the area who are complaining that Howard is enabling or a tool of the government in terms of gentrification. The fact that Howard Hospital services patients who can't go anywhere else, who don't have enough insurance or insurance at all, that's like, balance. I don't know if y'all watch Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, but like in the first or second season, homegirl who's the broke landlord was trying to fight gentrification in, I forget which borough they're in, but she just would do random stuff like
to disrupt the companies coming in,
right, to balance out and to scare newcomers or new neighbors. And honestly, I think that reinforcing what Howard Hospital is in the community for is a good way to fight gentrification. I certainly don't want for Howard to ever take the position where they don't provide service, period. Like, I don't want that to ever be a thing, because if the people over there can't get help, or elsewhere in an expansion can't get help, that's a problem. Like, we will suffer.
But you know what the biggest thing is to me? When you look at the public commentary on this, it's mostly the black residents. Now, Ors, I know you have a different opinion on this. It's mostly black folks that are saying, throw Howard Hospital in the trash. Like, it's like terrible service, people, but it's always without the context of, do you know who we serve and what we're doing here?
It's like the people who don't know. It's like somebody who doesn't know that they're black, and so they ignore that they're black, and they're like, yeah, do XYZ, and it's like, no, you in the same boat too. You can't just say do XYZ. Like, you
saying Northwest is in the sunken place. That's what you're saying.
But see, the thing about this is, and this is like what, again, you have to be kind of from DC to be able to have an opinion about this. Like, my physician, my entire life is at Washington Hospital Center. If anyone says Washington Hospital Center is a better hospital than Howard University, they haven't been. Like, it's, I mean, we look at the Washington WHC and HUH both serve very similar constituents. The majority are black. If you want a black doctor in DC, in most cases, you got to go to Washington Hospital Center or you got to go to Howard. So knowing those things, you make some type of concessions. Are the ladies who take your blood at Washington Hospital Center a little different than they are at Georgetown? They are, or GW. But I think that the conversations around service and care, again, are very, very poignant, and they should be taken seriously. But I think part of the issue is that when you look at a number of people who come into Howard University Hospital with no insurance, who are underinsured, who don't have any funds to cover a lot of their issues, and over the years, keep in mind, it's been documented that the city was sending people who were gunshot victims, who were stabbing victims, who were victims of different types of crimes, who were black from different parts of the city. We're sending them to Howard. They were driving past other hospitals to send them to Howard. So when you look at the history of the city, of what the hospitals had to deal with, and look at in full context, then you can have more of an opinion. But an individual experience taken into account, and even Dr. Fredericks even said this, that the hospital has been put under extreme amounts of stress by the city, and now is being told catch up. Right. When in actuality, there's been far more going on than just what can be seen in individual experiences, which is why I get so offended by it, because it's like people who don't realize that PG Hospital is not that great, Kaiser Largo is not that great. I mean, Arlington Hospital wasn't that great for years. Now, again, it's a much better hospital now, but I mean, even the reason my mother was born in Howard is because they weren't allowed to go to hospitals anywhere else. Hospitals in Maryland didn't take them. Hospitals in Virginia didn't take them. So the legacy is so important. I think that's what's being missed in the conversation, is that people are looking very much in 2019 and not at 1919 when the hospital was serving everybody, when it was still Freedmen's. So so many different things.
I'm just surprised that people don't put the dots together about why do you need Howard Hospital to be where it is, proximate to the university, training black doctors, training black nurses, and serving the poor. But at the same time, you say we don't want no gentrification. It's almost like you're countering your own argument, because if the hospital is one of the main enterprises that keeps DC black, so to speak, and you say Howard, HUH is trash, but keep DC black. What? Like, you know? So,
I also think it's that one fallacy where people say it and then people keep saying it, and so not everybody's saying it. So you have to believe it because everybody's saying it. I think it's this is also that.
What that has just become so much of ingrained in the culture that Howard Hospital is not good enough, that there's just a generation of people who just believe that, regardless of the changes that they make.
Yes, because we got hospitals like that in Baltimore. I want to say not Bone Secure. People still down on Bone Secure, but Maryland General, which is taken over by the University of Maryland. But back in the day, Maryland General, I was born there.
Don't forget about Gunshot. Don't forget about good Sam
Good
about
Samaritan, right?
Yeah, not want to go.
Things have changed.
They call it Gunshot Hospital. Like, that's what it's known for. So I mean, I think it's all very, very, it's all, how can I say this? It doesn't say enough about the hospital, because the hospital is also fully comprehensive. So you have pharmacy students, you have medical students, you have dental students. Like, it's one of the only hospitals in the city that offers full comprehensive care. So if you come in and something's wrong with your teeth, they have somewhere to send you, regardless of what your insurance situation looks like. So I think that people really have a jaded view of what Howard University Hospital and what the Howard University Medical Network, if you want to call it that, really does for Black residents. But again, we have an attitude of it's not good enough. And what people really want, they want all white services, they want white hospitals, they want white doctors, they want white restaurants, they want all this white stuff, and then all Black residents. That's not gonna happen.
Right. That's not the way it works.
They're not building new stuff for us.
Right. That is such the key point. Like, you want the better amenities, you want the higher quality stuff, and that's fine. You should. We deserve it. But with that, we have to have the higher income. We have to have the higher, rate of, entrepreneurs coming in. You got to have the higher rate of different services and different people coming in to accommodate that stuff. And if we're not doing it, it's like, well, what is it that you want from Howard? To remain economically depressed?
Y'all ain't paying this rent?
Because it won't be long. Because I'm gonna tell you, if Howard took the stuff over and did what it was supposed to do, as most universities are supposed to do, if Howard operated like Johns Hopkins, most of that community would have been wiped out. And people don't realize they are still there and they're still enjoying a DC lifestyle because Howard has not done that. Howard has been conscious about how do we maintain our tradition and maintain our community around here. So, it's a lot of stuff to unpack about this, but it's not something that's going to go away, because this is the second or third time this amendment has come around, and it's passed this time. So we will see in future editions or future meetings what happens, and we'll keep talking about it here. When we come back, we're going to have a brief discussion on the scandal going on at Southern University. I will try not to make the Jaguars hate me this time. Dodgers After Dark. We'll be right back. Dodgers After Dark, and we're back. Tiff mad that Morgan might get a medical school. That was future talk.
Mad. Stop telling these people stuff like that.
Competing with Howard Medical School.
Ain't no competition. They got to get it first. You talking about allegedly.
Right, they got to get it first.
Right.
So let's talk now about what's going on at Southern University. So what was this last week? Southern had news breaking about the possibility of a grade changing scandal at the institution involving officials as high as the campus, the Baton Rouge campus chancellor, James Ammons, who Orrs is nominated for a Lifetime Achievement Award, and several deans and department chairs, and it also involves the potential retaliatory firing of several faculty members, and it also calls into question the institution's approach to faculty and staff grievances about firings and dismissals, which basically have been kept secret from the campus, and in some cases kept secret from the folks who've been fired. So, I've had my my love-hate moments with Southern University, but let me first say I love Southern. It's the only historically Black system we have. The only thing close to it is UDC. Where you have law school, community college, agricultural center, a flagship campus. There's nothing like it anywhere. Nobody has anything like it. And where it's at, it's so important for that place to thrive. And when I say all that, it kills me that this school cannot stay out of scandal. I mean, it's almost like there's the school can't operate unless it's in scandal. Now, part of that is that's Louisiana. If you know anything about Louisiana, that is a corrupt state. They have very, very little regulation. It's a classically conservative controlled state. So they don't believe in a lot of regulation. They don't believe in a lot of checks and balances. They do believe in a lot of, quid pro quo. So that I don't intend or mean to make this conversation like Southern and Black folks at Southern got a problem. That's a Louisiana problem with everybody. But it is important to talk about it because Southern is the only one like it. And the more you take these hits, the more confidence that parents and students and alumni lose in the institution. And maybe not alumni, because Southern Jags don't give up. They're just going to say Southern is the greatest school of all time, and I don't care what happens. I don't care if Bayou Billy was the chancellor. We still going to be number one. But how do you guys look at this situation where it's like, this isn't just, a sex tape. This isn't band hazing. This isn't, somebody was hiring their sister to do a job. This is grade changing. And that's a situation where if they find it, your accreditation, it could be out of the window, because that calls into question everybody's grades, and your integrity as an institution. So for you guys, what are your thoughts on what's happening with Southern?
Who do you want to start?
We know where you're going to start.
I mean, this is highly documented. I said this when they hired this man 2 years ago or 3 years ago. I said this. You can probably find the tweets. I said when they hired former North Carolina Central Chancellor, former Florida A&M University President James Ammons, it was going to be some issues. And nobody wanted to believe me. People got into the other HBCU chat I'm in. A Southern alumni literally was going to threaten me. I said, Ray Belton just decided he was going to be corrupt when he hired James Adams. They were like physically upset with me. Multiple. And I said, okay, just watch, just wait. Your man's not going to let you down. And needless to say, in this article right here, it says, in addition, I'm going to read this verbatim. In addition to the open meetings lawsuit, the parties suing the university are seeking copies of records that could expose a scheme deeply rooted all the way back to Executive Vice Chancellor President James Ammons. I mean, I don't understand what more I have to say at this point. I said this, and again, this may happen without Ammons there, but because he's there, it proves my point that from Central to FAM to here, and it's sad because Southern doesn't deserve this, nor did FAM deserve it, nor did Central. I mean, Central has an amazing law school, one of the best the only HBCU law school to produce a governor of a state, North Carolina Central. FAMU, we know what one of the most amazing legacies in all of HBCU land. Southern, the only HBCU system. And for some reason, when he gets his hands on things, So, and again, all my opinions are my own. Please don't sue me. But, I just quoted an article, it's written by WAFB staff.
It's public figures. So you got a right to an opinion. I mean, what KD and Tiff, what do you guys think about it?
Go, KD.
Because I don't know what to say for real. The thing that bothers me is it's not just one person problem. This is an institutional problem. And so how far up or down are we going to punish people, assuming that this is true? I mean, how many times can we clean house at HBCUs? It just happens too much. And this time it's, the institution's fault. So we can't even really blame Louisiana for something that the institution did. Brandon, like you said, it's Louisiana. This is the state that has drive-through alcohol spots. Like you can get like slushies.
Kentucky.
It's wild. Louisiana.
We have that in Houston too, so I can't.
I was going to say they.
Wow. We definitely got drive-through daiquiri shops.
I ain't gonna lie to you. Prince George's got that. Ebony Inn, shout out on Sheriff Road.
What? Okay, so maybe I'm mistaken.
Walmart got hella drive-through liquor stores too. Like,
maybe I'm just.
But Louisiana's known for it. We will give you that one.
Yeah, and it's like at some point, all of the foolishness has to stop. That's the only thing I can draw from it. Because when you talk about grade changing, whose grades got changed? Why did they get changed? Who benefited from the change? Did you take money for grade changing? It's so many questions.
See, that's the thing about it, because if they find some merit to this, that logistically, not just financially or, bad media, logistically, that is a nightmare, because the requirement is then going to be, okay, we need to go back and audit everybody from this class, for example, or everybody from this cohort, because if you change 6 people's grades, how do we know that you weren't on the take and changed 20 other people's grades, or you didn't change 20 people a year ago's grades? So you have to, and Southern, I believe they don't got the staff to go through and purge that way. The reason you know it is because the last time Southern had an issue with academic transcripts or issues like that, it was with an NCAA inquiry where some student athletes it was not clear if they had been certified to compete. Now, luckily, they had a awesome athletic director, and shout out to William Broussard, who navigated that whole process of them. They got sanctioned, but they were able to get off of it in part because they were able to go back and rectify student transcripts and records to go back and reconcile over a course of years. I think between 99 and 2009 and 2012 or 2013, 4 years worth of records. I mean, and you're talking about hundreds of student athletes that they had to reconcile that for. So if that's just a couple of teams that they had to do that for, imagine a whole institution where they're in question a department, a division, a college, or a college or a division that they have to go back and do that for. That's thousands of kids. That's thousands of students. So you're not even talking about controversy. You're talking about a logistical nightmare that you may have to bring in extra staff. You may have to bring in extra people to oversee that process. It's crazy.
They got to pay a contractor to audit the grades of an entire institution for probably a decade.
So,
go ahead, Tiff, because I'm gonna say one more thing after you finish.
I think I might have the minority opinion here, and this might sound a little crazy, but honestly, if this was something that was student led and student facilitated, we would probably would not be having this discussion right now. We would be talking about how Southern needs to penalize students for doing this type of thing. And honestly, that's the cleanest way to do it. Like, it's nothing for students to, I don't know, does Southern have an engineering program? Anyways, if there was a student, if there was a JAG who was an engineering student or who had intimate knowledge and understanding of how I guess JAG web works.
And don't disrespect Southern Engineering. They have a great engineering school.
So I weren't.
Do they even have an engineering program?
She only knows Howard. That's why.
It wouldn't be an engineer though. It wouldn't be an engineer more or less, but a computer programmer. But okay.
But okay. So when we cut, I'll say what I was going to say, but what I can't say on air. Thank you very much, KD. As I was saying, if there was somebody who was experienced in computer engineering, IT, who decided, I know how to do this, I'm going to do it and put this on the black JAG interwebs for it to be done. That's different than an administrator facilitating the action.
But that is exactly what I was going to say. This is not the first time Southern has been implicated in a grade changing scandal. 2004, I believe. They had an issue where they got 500 some kids, if I'm remembering correctly, had paid to have their grades changed to an assistant registrar, and they found out that it dated all the way back to the 90s. So you're talking about a school that has already been through this. Now, let me give you some perspective. At the time, that was one of the biggest scandals in all HBCU history. I mean, when that happened, that was, not to trigger you or this alert, that was like Robert Champion level scandal. That's how significant grade changing is, because you can lose it all off that, because that's the core. That's what you do. That's your product. If we feel like you can come in and just buy a grade, you're done. You're out of business. They survived that, and now you're circling back to this again, and it's to your point, or it's about Dr. Ammons. So this is his record at 3 stops. He's had problems at 3 stops. When he was at Central, you put up a satellite campus illegally with Eddie Long in them in Atlanta. That was strike one. At FAMU, it was issues with money. It was issues with not being responsive to hazing allegations. That's strike number two.
And non-students receiving money to travel on behalf of the university in the band.
Right. And which on the low, a whole bunch of schools do. Let's just be clear. There's a whole bunch of former people that play in bands and sing with choirs that ain't enrolled. And they've been gone out of school at least 3 or 4 years. Shout out to Morgan State Choir. But but now here's strike three. Now here's your oversight of not only, were you aware of grade change, and that's yet to be revealed, but there are faculty members who are alleging not only did you know, we told you, and then you fired us for it. We told you that we wouldn't participate in doing this, and you fired us for it, or you tried to punish us for it. This, at some point, like, it's no disrespect. I mean, because there's some good things that he's done at each of those places. A lot of good things that he's done. But at some point, does somebody say, yo, you're canceled? Like, you're canceled. Like, I can't even put it as a Southern thing anymore.
I was so surprised when they hired him. Like, literally, I remember sitting in my house. I watched him speak in front of the board, and they nominated him, and he stood up and talked about his record. And I was really sitting there like, they've really hired this man to be vice chancellor of the system? Mm-hmm. Like, people forget about his evergreen contract at FAM, which extended a year every day he went to work. People forget about the issue with him keeping his tenure and his resign. It was so many issues. I was surprised, one, that people from Southern didn't have much of a ruckus about him being hired, and two, that they were bold enough to even hire him. Like, like, it's one thing if you had done it just as Central, but Central and FAM, you had issues, and now you're vice chancellor again. Like, he's number 2 in charge over a huge system. And I think that's what really, like, is disconcerting about it all, is that I understand that we take care of our own and we continue to hire the same people over and over again, but at what point is enough? Because let's say it comes out that he does know. Let's say that he's totally innocent, which I don't believe. But let's say he's totally innocent. Then that means that, okay, he deserves this chance and he can continue to move forward. But if he's not, if it comes out that he is liable, he's culpable. I mean, this article here ruling to that the Southern University Grievance Committee broke state law. Like, that's what it says here. Like, they handled the grade allegations incorrectly. They broke the state's law. It's going to fall under him as vice chancellor. He's over academic operations. Like, I don't understand why there's still a conversation about it. Well, I don't understand why he still has a job.
And here's what makes it even more problematic. I don't know if Southern's one of these places, but I will let you guys in on a secret. It is not unusual for
us and 8 million other listeners. Wow.
Well, no, it's not a secret. It's a secret. It's one of those hidden in plain sight secrets. A lot of institutions, and I don't think it's just HBCUs, but a lot of institutions, what they will do is they will hire somebody that will be, unbeknownst to most of us, the president in waiting. Okay. So if you remember, and I don't think this is disrespectful to say it, Wayne Frederick became the provost almost out of nowhere at Howard. Now, when I say out of nowhere, now he was a high-ranking faculty member. You know, he was somebody who was, in academic leadership, particularly in the medical school. But then all of a sudden, he just became the provost. And there are a lot of places where you can kind of see someone is hired and being groomed to someday become the president. It appears, given his history and what was needed at the school, that Ammons was going to be, when the current president, system president Ray Belton, leaves, the next president of Southern System. If this is borne out to be true and he has to exit, or even if he doesn't, this throws into question, okay, now what does that transition look like? Because how many people are going to accept that a guy at the center of a scandal like this could still be the king in waiting? You talk about a leadership disruption, because some people are going to say on campus and beyond are going to say, absolutely not. He doesn't get the shot now. So who does? And are they being groomed for it? Just some food for thought there to put on people's radar.
I know, Jared, and I know you and I talked about this maybe a year ago about how it seemed like Ammons was taking charge for a lot of things over at Southern. It looked like he was probably going to be taking that role. But I mean, it's unfortunate because let's not get things confused. He's had an amazing career on the good side. Like, he's an extremely well versed academic. Mm-hmm. He's run very large schools. He's been comprehensive. I mean, he really led and helped lead the push to bring FAMU's law school back and get it to where the point it is now. Like, I mean, he's done a lot of amazing things, but sometimes it just seems like he can't keep his hands clean, and that's unfortunate because it may not all be his fault. I mean, if the hazing accident doesn't happen, he probably never leaves FAM.
Hell no, not with that evergreen contract. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, and FAMU probably has 25,000 students by now. Like, honestly, I mean, my freshman class was the biggest HBCU freshman class in history. Like, I don't see that trend changing at all. He probably is bringing in 4,000 freshmen a year every year to the point where the school's at 25,000 capacity. So I think that he does get a bad rap, and he was the president he was my president at FAMU. So I think that there is some redeeming qualities of the man. It's just sad that, it's going to affect Southern in the same way it probably affected FAM, and hopefully they don't have accreditation issues. Like, if this is really a grade change, as you said, this could be another SAC situation we're talking about in 6 months, and who knows how that will go.
Jesus.
So,
because that will be like the second round of probation for them if that's true.
And then at the same time, just like at Texas, at TSU and Texas Southern, are they going to be legislating trying to protect the law school? Is it going to be trying to? There's so many different factors involved in this that are so much bigger than just someone individual conduct. Mm-hmm. It's really disconcerting.
Well, I don't know if you cancel him or not. I just know that this disrupts a whole bunch of stuff with leadership. It shatters, again, confidence, not among the Jaguars, because they don't care. They're going to say Southern is great no matter what happens. And maybe it is, and I'm just missing it. A lot of us are just missing it. We're going to shift to some good news next. Everybody's aware of the Bethune-Cookman situation, but I don't know if a lot of people realize Bethune-Cookman is actually raising some money down there. And I don't know if they're on their way of coming out of their situation. But they certainly are working hard. We're going to get into that next on Dodgers After Dark. Dodgers After Dark, and we're back. Tiff pulling emails. Just note to all the listeners out there, particularly in the Uncut chat, don't text Tiff.
Watch what you say to me.
She keeping her text records.
I'm a screenshot assassin.
I was about to say, Tiff had screenshot written all over her forehead.
Mm-hmm.
Right, she does be screenshotting.
Ask about me.
Circling.
I just sent Jared a screenshot earlier.
Circling stuff with the marker, all that stuff. Let's talk about something good now. So Bethune-Cookman, in a world of hurt over the last 6 months, maybe even longer.
Longer? What you mean?
Detailing back to actually 3 years now.
Exactly.
But in terms of their leadership issue, trying to find a new president, board infighting, all that, they seem to be coming out of it now. So I don't, if you go to hbcudigest.com, there's an interview up there with the vice president of institutional advancement, Clifford Porter at Bethune-Cookman. And he talks about how the school is running 3 different fundraising campaigns to support the school. One is for students and folks on campus. Another one is for faculty. And another one is specifically designed to help the school pay bills, build up their cash assets so they can pass an accreditation review.
I just want to pause right here and say that this is what Bennett should have been doing. They should have had 3 different campaigns going over the course of those 2 or 3 years that they were on academic probation.
That's a good point. Did they need to do that?
Instead of just doing it all together and doing the best that they could.
Because my thinking when I heard the Bethune-Cookman thing, I was like, well, that's a lot of messaging going out to basically one Wildcat community. But it seems to be working. It seems to be working because they're generating some good fundraising gains from this. So they've had Faculty donate, I think last month, more than $26,000. They had a married couple from somewhere, a white couple from somewhere in Florida, drive up to the campus and donate $9,000 to the school. And I will be honest, there's a wave, I think, because of Bennett, because of Trump, because of a few other things. There's a wave that is helping people to rediscover why it's worthwhile to invest in HBCUs. But quietly, Bethune-Cookman is a big benefactor of whatever that wave is. So I would ask you guys, I would start with the hard question first. There are a lot of people out there who would say, yeah, that's nice. Bethune-Cookman is raising money, but they got a problem. That board is still the same. And that dorm deal that they had is still $300 million, and they still got a bunch of lawsuits that they got to face off against. Are we throwing good money after bad supporting Bethune-Cookman? Tiff.
I think it would only be throwing good money after bad if this wasn't a detailed giving campaign. Like, Bennett was good money after bad. I mean, again, I said it in the first one, or maybe I said that on the take.
Hold up, you weren't standing with Bennett?
No. I was, but I also believe that I said either publicly or privately or maybe in the chat that they had X amount of years to make a change, to make this work. They were on probation for however long. Mm-hmm. And it's like they dawdled until time actually ran out. They raised all this money and still got their stuff snatched. Mm-hmm. So, like, it would be different for Cookman if that was the case, but they're being proactive. They're doing what most would want them to do. So it would be different if they were taking the same route that Bennett took, but it's clear that they're not. Like, they learned from Bennett's mistake, mm-hmm. which is what any of us can do in terms of experiencing life and going forward from decisions that we have to make, or mistakes that we've made, or bad decisions that we've made.
Ain't that a word, Katie?
I have zero problem with people supporting the HBCU. I just hope that leadership is doing right by the people that's giving them this money.
Would you write a check to Bethune-Cookman? I'm going petty. I'm going petty ass podcast. You know what,
now. Actually, to answer that question honestly, I would need to see some type of. They would need to at least present me a plan and say, all right, this is how we're going to move the next 5 years.
Artifacts.
Because if you don't have that plan in place, then I'm holding my dollars. That's just me, though.
So what does a plan look like? Is it, okay, here's what we're going to use the money for? Is it, here's how we're going to change, our academic profile? Because you know what's not going to change? That board of trustees. And that board of trustees is at the core of why they're in trouble right now. So if they're not going to say to you, we're not changing any members, you just got to trust that we've learned and we're going to do better. One thing that white schools do is somebody will come into a bad situation and say, I'm going to drop $20 million. And guess what? I'm the captain now. What black folks will say is, I'm not giving you my $20 anymore until the whole board resigns.
I mean, a prime example of this is University of Houston. Tillman Fertitta is the chairman of the board.
Right. Right.
You think it's because he understands how universities operate? No, he's a billionaire. That's
they
why.
Come in and say, I'm T. Boone Pickens at Oklahoma.
Exactly.
They write a big enough check and they say, I'm the captain now. And in some cases they say, I'm the president now. So
I mean, wow. I think that there's, I mean, let's not forget what happened with Youngstown State and
Jim Tressel.
Yeah, Jim Tressel got a big payout too when he got fired. Right. So, and now he's the president.
Mm-hmm.
So, without a doctorate degree. Mm-hmm. So, I think that there's. I'm just. Did I lie? Did I lie?
That's the truth.
So, I think that there's. As someone who is somebody who cares about Florida HBCUs, I think that Bethune needs to survive, and if this is going to help them survive, then I'm all for it. I think that there is not as been much support for Bethune because of some of their leadership challenges. and I'll call them challenges, with how their messaging has been, how they've approached things, even before this dorm deal from the law school deal, which was just as bad. So I think that this can be something positive because it's clear that students and faculty are still trying to work for the mission of the university. But would I give them money at this point in my life? I wouldn't be in a position to give them anything. But I do think that, it's important that the internal community of Bethune continue to support the school, and hopefully they can find a way out of all this, and they can strive, sooner than later.
What do you think the tipping point is, Katie? Let me throw this back to you, because Coppin has seen some struggles over the years, but it actually has been coming up in the last couple of years. And knowing you still support Coppin, go to Coppin, give to Coppin. What is it that solidified with you that I don't care what happens, I'm still going to support the school? And what do you think could happen where you say I'm going ready to shut off the resources at this point because y'all have lost my confidence?
Well, if you would have told me that, I guess now, when I'm 31, so 7 years ago, that I would have graduated from college, I wouldn't believe you. Coppin changed my life, and so I feel like I owe Coppin something, and so that keeps me engaged in the community, as well as my the oath I took to Alpha, right? Because I promised, we all based on scholarship and community service. First part for me is serving Coppin, but with that being said, if I found again, it's a high bar, right? But I would have to find out that like they were purposely putting presidents in place for the university to fail. But again, because it's a state school, I can't be mad at Coppin as I can be at the what's the system? The University of Maryland school system. And because that's where a large part of our problems begin and end is with them. Coppin is always at the mercy of Maryland. So it's a little different for us in that aspect. It would take a lot.
Fair Morgan Independent Board.
Right.
Absolutely. But again, the first HBCU in Maryland should have independent board. We were a teachers college at first. The university thing didn't come until about the 70s. Well, we still new to it.
Bowie actually older than us, and they in the state system, so they would,
Bowie's the oldest.
They got them. They knew what to do with that. But what I would say is, so if Coppin hired James Ammons, would you still give? why am I being extra shady with KD?
I don't know. I don't know what I did to him this week.
You the closest.
Maybe when I pay him for this table.
You the closest to me. That's why. So if they made, if they made a clearly bad decision, would you say?
Would I stop giving?
Right.
I would not give to the alumni association because I feel like that's a little different mission than the university itself. But I would definitely publicly challenge that president. Every chance I got, I would make it my mission
to go to the town hall,
be a thorn in his side until he quit or he did right by the university. Right. I promise you, I would change my entire directive just to be a thorn in his side. Because again, Baltimore was a small community. The Sun, WJZ will pick up whatever story you write, especially if there's a negative against a university within the city corridor. They would eat that alive if I had like 10 good articles. Just for this one guy, like, why has he got so much smoke for him?
Well, I had smoke with Wilson, and he still ride. He getting more money, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, he got his leash a little longer because y'all got the engineering program.
Yeah, you might be right. Oars ain't really coming after him hard. It's just me.
I mean, I still don't even understand why the engineering school named after Clarence when Perrin is an alumni out of school. Like, we picked the wrong Mitchell brother, but that's a whole other conversation. Perrin Mitchell is a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus and an alumni out of school, and we named the engineering school after his brother.
It depends on what kind of relationship Perrin had with the school. Just keep in mind, Pete Rawlins' name is on a dorm. He was an enemy of Morgan after a while. So
listen, one of the Tuskegee Airmen is a Coppin State University alum. He cannot get a building, so I don't know
because he ain't giving no money.
How do you make these decisions?
He ain't giving no money, and it's an evil world we live in. But let me say, I am exceedingly proud that Bethune-Cookman. One of the things that I respect most about what Cookman is doing is they're not running from the issue. When I talk to the VP, when you see the faculty and the students and the staff talk about it, they do not duck the elephant in the room. Like, they embrace it and say, hey man, we in a bad way, but we're trying to work our way out of it. They're not saying, hey, well, we're moving forward, we don't want to talk about that. They don't do that. And I don't know if that's because they can say, well, it wasn't me, it was that guy who's no longer president anymore, or we're going to do this in spite of the board. I don't know what it is, the attitude they taken, but it's so unique and refreshing to hear people embrace the fact that, hey, we're in trouble. Because that was something that you didn't even see from Bennett until it was over, until they lost accreditation. And that's when they really got busy with the fundraising and started to say, we have to do something different. Cookman is doing that now. So I think that Tiff, this is to your point. I think they learned from Bennett. Like, don't wait, don't hide it, and don't be ashamed of the problem. You better tell people, like, yes, we have a problem and we need you to help us get out of it.
But with that, you got to tell people that you got a plan to stay out of trouble.
See, that's the thing. I don't think that they do. If you can't say that we're going to do things differently and you keep the same agents who caused the chaos in the first place, right?
You might say, I mean, Grimes is still there. I mean, like, and this is no offense to him, but even when we talked about the whole dorm deal, it's like, you went from general counsel to president. You talk about, I wasn't involved in this. You're general counsel of the university. Like, we signed a contract.
Right. So
I think that it's unfortunate that that's kind of the niche of it all. But again, I think that what Jared said was spot on about, I think that Bethune can survive in spite of, especially, with what they've been moving forward with. And again, you compare them to a school like Morris Brown, which refuses to admit its issues. At any point, the president.
I was wondering who was going to pull up more.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, the president continues to duck interviews and duck tweets and talk about being transparent. Talk about we've been closed for a few years. It's been 17. I mean, I think that
no interviews turned down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's refreshing to see how transparent they've been. I have a friend of mine whose sister just graduated from Bethune this weekend. And I saw it on online. So I mean, I think they're still moving in the way in which the school moves. They're still educating students, producing degrees, and trying to fundraise. So I think that's quite refreshing to see, versus what Bennett did was say we're all good until the last minute, and then when stuff hit the fan, it spread everywhere and hit everybody. And now I don't know what's going on with Bennett, honestly, because they're still suing and in court.
They're still in courts, and that's
so crazy to me.
To me, that is the most baffling part of this. I feel like if they went to that development company, and said, "Hey, look, the guy that brokered this deal and the trustees that let it happen, they're all gone. They've resigned and they walked away. Can we work with you to settle this thing?" If you stop suing people, maybe you put out a lot of the fires that got you in the paper for $330 million. You know what I mean?
But also, I mean, I think, and again, I've mentioned this before, like, there's no way in heaven, hell, or purgatory that deal did not violate some consumer protection. Like, there's no way. I mean, we understand that Dodd-Frank was put in place for this very reason. Like, and there's no way you can tell me that deal, if we go through it and look at the provisions for the state and for the federal government and say that deal is fully legal, that it's okay, and that we're comfortable with the bank giving a university, a black university, a deal with an interest rate that high, with terms of that nature.
Hey, quiet as it's kept. The federal government doing it with a capital finance program, and I can't say that they've been given unfavorable terms. What has been the issue is that the enrollment is not kept up with what those debt servicing terms have been. So, if you projected over, hey, we've been growing by 500 students every year for the last 5 years, and you project that you can at least do half of that for the next 5 years, then you make a deal and say, well, this is the revenue that we'll have. Well, what happens when, Obama says ain't no more plus loan, and you lose 700 students in 2 years? You know what I mean?
Is that what happened?
Yeah, in so many words. So
Yikes.
Then now you're trying to, what was at least a 250 student surplus every year has now become a 250 or 500 student deficit every year. So then what? So that is part of the conversation that I don't think that they will ever share. But a lot of people should. A lot of people try. But it is no excuse for saying, okay, well, what do we do with this new financial reality? And how do we solve the issue of this infighting, this personal promotion of board members, all that? Vince Carter's mama got to step down off the board. It takes that 3 weeks to happen. You got trustees up here who helped sign the deal. It took them half a year to resign. How does that happen? You got a former judge who's the board chair now, who literally came out and held a press conference against other members of the board. What are we doing? But what you appreciate is that the people who aren't involved in that at all, who just want to see Bethune-Cookman do well, are coming out saying, yeah, that's us, but we still deserve to be here. Despite all that foolishness, we still deserve to be here. And we hope you will support us. So hopefully that was some good news. We still got shady. I'm sorry, Katie. And when we come
I ain't
back,
worried about you.
and when we come back, we're going to have another conversation that you guys won't be apprised of. That's based on something we said in the chat. That just After Dark. We'll be right back. The Dark. We're back wrapping up our show. Had some conversation about Bethune-Cookman and their fundraising gains. Southern University and Orr's and his anti-James Abbott campaign, and the Howard University Hospital. So let's finish this out. So you guys threw in the chat, or somebody did, this poll about the sexiest dialects in America. Did you? Who
I missed that today.
Who put that in there?
I think it was.
And it actually was me. No, Taylor put it on Twitter.
Taylor tweeted it
and I
about
put it
St.
in
Louis.
there. And we had the conversation about, okay, well, where are the most attractive dialects that you've heard in your travels around the country, right?
Well, that's where those conversations. Okay.
Right. So now let's transfer that over to the campuses. So if you had to take your pick of which campuses of all the ones that we've been to, did you get the most love? And I ain't talking about anything, illicit. I'm just talking about where you felt like, hey, I would come back here. Or I feel like this is an extension of where I go to school. Or they do it just like we do it at my campus here. Like, where have you felt like the most love in your HBCU, your travels throughout HBCU country?
I love to hear the Mecca first.
Well, Tiffany is standoffish, so I wouldn't be surprised if she received hate from several campuses. But go ahead, Tiff.
I will say that having been removed from an HBCU community for 2 years before getting to K-State, when I first came to K-State, I was like, damn, I miss being home. But I think that was just because I knew that I was back in an HBCU community. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily that was what I received at the time. But yeah, that's the best way I can answer this question.
So so Kentucky State has been one of your more favorable experiences in the HBCU community outside of Howard.
I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying that having been removed from the physical campus and a physical community for 2 years.
Basically, you ain't traveling nowhere. Okay.
Or she gets hate. She gets a lot of hate. She gets a lot of hate where she goes. So
you know what,
Katie, where have you?
Because I'm about to throw Oars off. You know what? He's gone.
She didn't throw Oars off?
She threw him out.
Did she kick him off?
What is she doing?
Oh my God! What is wrong with you?
He'll be back. while we wait for Oars to come back, because Tiffany threw him out.
I don't know why y'all like to play with me. like y'all don't know that denied. Like y'all don't
do that. You got to put it back on.
We are recording.
We're literally recording.
Break.
We're literally recording. And she's got
I don't know why you like to play
the
with
bell going off. Katie, go ahead. Where is the campus where you got the most love?
Oh wow. I don't normally have a problem getting love on campuses. So all of them. But the ones that I enjoyed the most, the atmosphere I enjoyed the most was the merger of Morehouse, Spelman, and Clark. Like, it's just, I don't know, but I like Atlanta, so I might have a little bias down there, man. I think that's the one experience I wish I would have had But again, I didn't want to go to college, so I wasn't even looking for that when I was leaving high school. Hey, Ors.
She literally threw him out like live in recording. Like,
Yeah, that was
I
hard.
need for y'all to know.
I'll
The
say
chat
this.
room rumble is
I wasn't saying that you're not well traveled. I was just saying that you didn't travel to a lot of campuses while you were in school.
I didn't either though.
See, now
I did.
Now she feels bad.
I traveled.
I don't feel bad.
I went to
You should
Bethune.
know well enough by now.
While I was in school, I went to Bethune. I went to A&T. I went to Tuskegee. Where else did I go? I went to all three of the AUC schools. I went to Savannah State. Like I went to a lot of. I was like, oh, I know you. You go to this school. We taking a road trip. So that was me.
So which campus would you say, like, I would, as a student, like, I would go back there? Like, this is live, or I love it here. Like,
I'm not gonna lie. I went to Tuskegee homecoming one year.
Mm-hmm.
That jump was right. Their stadium is, shout out to whoever it was that had an ID look like me. I got the student ID to get into the game for free. And their stadium isn't like a real stadium. It's like basically like a big ass piece of grass with an overhang. Right. But it's like they like tailgate like almost like on the field. Like, they got people with grills like damn near in the end zone.
Yeah.
So yeah, their homecoming was pretty great. I always had a good time in Atlanta though. There's obviously a lot of people from DC. Especially I went to private high school, so all the Catholic school people they end up going to Spelman or Morehouse or whatever. So I always had fun in Atlanta. I went to Aggie Fest one year. That was great. I liked Aggie Fest more than I liked GHO. So I mean, there was a lot of campus, but I had to probably give it to Tuskegee first because I didn't know anyone at Tuskegee. I just showed up, and it was a great time.
I always found Howard to be standoffish. It's not like you could walk around campus and like going to CAF and people are like, oh, where you from? Or
I would love to see her throw Jared out today.
Oh, she can throw me out and get thrown off the show.
First of all, here's some rules for people that don't understand how this works. Me and Jared don't do that to each other. That's one thing. Like, we joke around, but he not gonna do that to me, and I'm not gonna do that to him. But I'll do that to y'all if y'all try me again.
But you know what's funny?
And Jared is gonna laugh.
Other people have been thrown off. I'm one of the first to come back, so I'm gonna go ahead and
I brought you back. I denied you the first time. The second time I said, okay, admit it.
Oh my goodness.
I found Howard to be standoffish. Tiffany affirmed how standoffish the school is. That was in my student years.
When did I affirm that?
I would say locally, surprisingly, considering it's in PG, which is Standoff USA, Bowie State actually shows a lot of love. I mean,
Bowie was so much fun. Every time I go, it's so much fun.
Schools are fun. Bowie is fun. Lincoln's a lot of fun.
Lincoln is very cool.
Dell State is fun, but you gotta get out there. UMS is fun, but you gotta get out there. I mean, that's a drive.
You would be surprised. A lot.
All three of those, and I just never got out the car.
You assume that a lot of the more northern HBCU campuses, just because of the geography and the attitudes of the people up here, that they're kind of standoffish, right? Like Morgan, nobody's gonna really show you love unless you know somebody. If you know somebody, then you're gonna have a good time. If you're just if you're kind of walking around the campus, like nobody's gonna be like, hey, what you looking for? That's the way I'm defining like show love. When I've been to Bowie, if I'm looking for something, somebody will stop and be like, oh, I'll walk you over there. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like they, especially and I hate to say it, if you're Greek, yeah, you're good at Bowie. That may not be the case at Morgan. It may not be the case at Howard.
That actually is not.
I mean, let's not forget that Morgan has had chapters they're suspended for fighting other chapters in the same city.
Shout out to BA.
Back in my senior year,
and I wasn't even talking about them.
You talking about the Omega? Shout out to the kids.
Back in my senior year, when I was an ambassador, I took a few of my co-ambassadors to campus, and one young man was an alpha. He was wearing his jacket and everything, and he approached a K, and he like introduced himself and everything, and she was just like, "And
right,
you're from where?
And what school was that?
Where was it? A very small HBCU out of Damn.
No, what's the name of the school?
Was it Alabama?
See, you don't even know where you were.
No. I was on my campus. I was at Howard. I said I took my co-ambassadors to my campus. And my man, who was an alpha, wanted to introduce himself to a K. And she was like, and you're from where?
Again, Howard,
And walked away.
stand off you. What I have found personally for me, and I think it's just more my personality, I think the more rural HBCUs show a lot of love. I recently, a couple weeks ago, went to Alabama A&M for the first time. Got a lot of love there. Like, meaning people are walking down the sidewalk. Hey, how you doing? Are you with somebody? Or are you looking for something? Alcorn had a great time there, and that's literally in the middle of nowhere. People were trying to take me to the chicken spot. That's like literally down a dirt road.
They call it the reservation for a reason.
It's the reservation. I'm trying to think of another one where they showed a lot of love. UMES, back when I was a student, went to UMES homecoming, which is one of my favorite homecomings of all time. A basketball homecoming.
Best spring homecoming by far.
Got caught in a blizzard. we were partying in the middle of a blizzard. I mean, but it's those kind of experiences where I feel like when you're on a campus where all they have is each other, you get a lot of love. When you're in a campus where it's kind of metropolitan situated, where there's more to do than worry about who's new on the campus, you don't get as much love. The only exception I would say to that in my travels at least was Tennessee State. To be in a big city and people showing big love, like that's a big difference. Tiff drops in the chat that Alpha was from Talladega. Unfortunate. Shout out to Diga in their chapter. Katie, do you have any thoughts on Alpha getting played by an Alpha AK from the Alpha chapter?
No. It's expected.
Dang,
It's expected.
I mean,
from Alpha chapter? What?
I guess in some cases, just depends on where you. I'm not Greek, so I know no Biden is. But I mean, I think that, like you said, Jared, like
hey, women that
even when I'm at, like, I live like across the street from Texas Southern. Like, TSU is a very different environment than Prairie View, and they're like they're 45 miles away from each other. But Prairie View is in the woods. Prairie View is known as a party school. They got bulls and cattle running through their parties on the yard.
Hell no.
And I mean, and Texas Southern is in the middle of third world. Like, it's surrounded by a lot more to do than out at Prairie View. So I think, like you said, I think it's very true. I mean, even look at the biggest party schools in the country, even white schools. You're talking about West Virginia and Florida State and all these schools. They're in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Southern has it's in a city, Baton Rouge, but they have
call Baton Rouge a city.
They got a downtown.
Baton Rouge like Tallahassee. It's a big ass town.
They have a real downtown though.
This is true.
It's not like downtown, where the downtown is like a main street. Like, they actually have a business district. You know what I mean?
I'll give you that.
Southern has like a rural feel, but it's on the outskirts of Baton Rouge. And you can get love there. It depends on the day and like how many people are outside and all that kind of stuff. But I think, the more northern you go, if you're just going on a regular day, I'm not talking about a spring fest or a yard fest or homecoming or anything. That's the way I'm defining, like, how much love do you get on campus? When everybody's outside, everybody is showing love, because that's what the event is about. I ain't gonna lie, Coppin homecoming is pretty dope.
Yeah, for what it is. I mean, it is small, so it's
but
like
you gotta go at homecoming. If you're just walking around on a regular day, it's like somebody might literally say, like, who is this dude?
Yeah, you're gonna get pulled up on, especially in the spring when we all outside. Somebody gonna pull you up because you're gonna look like a stranger. Like, it's only 2,500 students. The active students probably make up 800, and so if you don't live on campus, you already look.
You
weird,
see what I mean? So that's not love. That's a threat. Like,
no, it's like, yo, are you looking for somebody? Like, what's going on?
That's intimidation. Like, that's not HBCU love.
Well, we gotta protect our campus. We in the cut.
You right?
Not even in the cut, but we in the middle of the trap. So
I was gonna say, ain't nothing cut about Coppin.
You right? I mean, but that's what I'm basing that off of, and I think that this whole conversation pretty much lends itself to how welcoming is your campus to the surrounding community. Because because you can't.
We like the dog park at Howard.
If you don't go there,
except ain't no dogs, or as y'all say, dogs.
Ain't no dogs.
Ain't no dogs.
You know, the
But I would say like that's the key. Like if people who aren't from your campus and aren't of that campus community can't walk around and say, hey, I like it here, I like to come on campus, then I wonder how the people in your community feel. And is there something that the administration can do to change that culture? Because we talked about this in the chat before. At least when I was a student at Morgan, it was not unusual for young people that were in that community, like the Northeast community, to be riding bikes and skateboards through the campus. So that, to me, that I was always happy to see that, because it signaled the young people, the kids in the community, like to be on campus. At least if for no other reason, it's an open space. It's pretty girls to look at. It's
that was before 2010 when people started getting robbed. By them little kids, and people were getting robbed by high school students. I mean,
that's right.
These were not grown men robbing people on them bridges.
Right.
It was kids 16, 17 years old.
Yeah. I mean, but that to me is the signal of how if other HBCU community members get love, then the community might feel love. And it's interesting that y'all bring up Howard, because the people who want to walk through Howard's campus are disrespecting it. So now what is interesting about that, just to bring this full circle, where was the surrounding community to defend Howard? I ain't talking about the students. Obviously the students should have defended Howard. But where were the people in the community to say, hey, don't walk your dogs on that campus?
But keep in mind, like, Bloomingdale especially has been gentrified immensely. Like, the property values in Bloomingdale are insane. So people who like still do live in the community, who've been there for a good amount of time, are old. And there are not a lot. There probably are new black residents who live there, but they probably didn't go to HBCUs and have no connection to the city. They're probably from Iowa, Grand Rapids, or somewhere. Like they're not. They're probably, shout out to Floyd Mayweather. They're probably not. They're probably not. They probably don't have a connection to the school. I mean, I think the sad part about it is with the Howard situation. Again, Howard in many cases hasn't always had the best relationship with Black DC. Like, a lot of the students have been seen as, bougie Black DC people. Even the Black students who went to Howard, like, my father's from Uptown. Someone from Southeast 20 years ago probably didn't like my dad because people from Uptown
it's two different parts of town.
Yeah,
right?
My father went to Coolidge when Coolidge was still like a mixed race high school versus going to Anna or going to Ballou or going to HD. So I mean, I think there's been and people who went to Coolidge and went to Wilson and went to those schools back in the day, who went to Howard, was a different type of Black person than the people who went, who were more Marion Barry type people on the South Side. So I think that the dynamics are very, very different. But it's the same way at Baltimore, Morgan. Like, Morgan is not the most beloved school within the city. No. Because of that reason. Because they look at Morgan as uppity, bougie Black people in Baltimore and people from PG and from DC who come up. So I think that's interesting that you mentioned that, because Coppin is more of the working people's school of the city in any way. And it's in West Baltimore, which obviously gets more love anyway. Right. So,
but Morgan, the students we don't respect our campus community. Like, we have garages now, and we will still park on the streets. Like,
yeah, the garage far as hell.
You can't garages. But you got shuttles now. Like,
that don't far, yo. Like, I went to school with the garage there. That don't past engineering is far. Like. That joint is mad. I was a business student. You know how far McMecken is?
That's true.
From architecture.
And you don't want to walk there at night. But at the same time, I mean, that is why we have an antagonistic relationship with the community. And that's why a lot of HBCUs go through that. One, we don't invite the community on campus, even for athletic events. If we don't tell them to come to like a rivalry game, we'll say come to homecoming. We don't say, hey, come see us against a big time opponent.
Man, Coppin versus Morgan should be the biggest game in Baltimore City 2 times a year.
It typically is, but
people
are afraid to get stabbed.
Usually you have some celebrities there. You got some cameras. I think the bigger issue with that has just been like the advent of how things have gone for both schools in the last couple of years. Like, when Morgan's competitive, the game is usually bigger. When Coppin's competitive, the game is bigger. But again, I think the university does a terrible job at making things bigger. They don't publicize the Howard football game at all, and it's still like the best-selling game besides homecoming every year. They do no publicity for it.
Right.
It be a regular game on the schedule, and people still show up.
But it's because the people have decided this is something that we're going to make into a cultural event, and that's a good thing when the community decides that. But we don't. I don't feel like we show enough love to let the community know like you can facilitate more opportunities like that. Like I was always surprised. Like we have a thing in Morgan called I Love Morgan Day. Well, how come more of the community is not there? That's the perfect time for small kids to be on campus and playing on a moon bounce and eating funnel cake and getting
this
your face
whole
painted
Morgan
on.
Mile thing fell off hard. So I'll say this right: the people in Tallahassee love FAM. Like the people, even if they didn't go to college, like FAMU leads the FCS in attendance every year for football, not because of students and alumni, but because the black people in Tallahassee love FAMU. Like there's like when people have house parties, they don't call the police. Like it is generally like the area surrounding the school loves the campus, and Morgan is the exact opposite, where they call the police on us, get our cars towed, ask us to get tickets. Like, so I did see a difference when I was in school because FAM, as a community, like the Tallahassee people love FAMU, and they generally have love for the black FAMU students versus what I saw in Baltimore.
You know that your school has community resonance when the citizens, and we'll wrap up on this note, when the citizens who did not attend college or did not attend that school are wearing your colors in the community. And there are very few places that I've been where people, little kids, senior citizens are wearing a shirt of the college of the HBCU in that area.
You're absolutely right. It trips me out to see people in the airport, like people that you know didn't go to Coppin, in Coppin State University t-shirts.
And they got a Coppin shirt
I'm like,
shirt
whoa.
on. Why? Because that to them.
Did you get that from Goodwill? Did you go to the school and get it? I need to know.
But it's part. They had to go to the school because we don't sell them in the stores. But what I'm saying is that's part of their civic pride. And there are very few campuses where I've been where people in the community are wearing a shirt like that. Alcorn is one of them. Morehouse, you see, people in the Atlanta area wearing a Morehouse shirt. Like that's not foreign. So what I think HBCU's got to do a better job of is finding a way beyond athletics, forget football and basketball, beyond athletics, where people feel like that's my school. Because you know who else does that? People all over PG County wear Maryland shirts. People all over South Carolina wear Clemson shirts. Because they feel,
even though they wouldn't accept either one of them,
right? And they feel like that's my school, even if they touch no parts of the campus. They feel like that's my school. HBCU's got to get to a point where, either by hook or by crook, they're doing something that people in the community feel like that's my school, that's my anchor institution. Just like people in BWI wear a Coppin shirt. You know what I mean? That's my. I'm repping that school, not Maryland, not UB, Coppin.
Yeah.
So
I've never seen you be paraphernalia.
Nah, them people stay with the UB Law crew necks.
UB Law, exactly.
That's
UB
it.
Law
Just UB Law. Just UB Law. They got an undergraduate. I got two that graduated from UB. I've never seen them wear University of Baltimore shirts since I've met them.
Not ever.
But
I met them as
they're rocking UB
students.
Law stuff. UB Law stuff goes hard.
That's different. UB
So-
got one of the best law schools in the state.
Yeah. We got to get to there. So, brothers, I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Tiff not throwing off the show tonight, but since she threw off oars, may consider throwing her off for real by the next recording.
Get out of here.
So, again, thank you guys for listening.
Mid-broadcast, she threw somebody off.
She threw somebody off in the middle of taping. HBCUdigest.com. And again, on the Sirius 142 XM radio network, the pride of Howard University's digital imprint. Thanks for listening. Digest After Dark. Peace.